Welcome to Tazeen TV, the place to be to deepen your spirituality, healing and growth, and come away with a greater sense of well-being. Now, if you're wondering about changing careers, or how to move from dis-ease to ease, or how to charter mothering with a business, our next guest is for you. We're joined by holistic executive coach Susan Treadgold, best-selling co-author of 2 Success University for Women books, one which focuses on business, and also author of High Performing Women, 52 Take Action Tips for Greater Confidence, Energy and Impact. Susan, let's talk about your career transformation. You went from banking, the corporate world, into something completely different, personal transformation. What made you do that change?
Well, I mean, nobody grows up saying, I want to be an investment banker when I grow up. I did love my time. I love learning new things, sharing what I learned with others, knowing about world events, being with really intelligent people. But what was missing for me was helping other people, and that was really important to me. I think when you're very clear that you want to change, I think there's opportunities all around. And once you have that clarity that you want the change, the opportunities around you present themselves and you see them. So other times you don't see them. And so what happened for me, it was on my mind that I wanted to make a major career change. And I was really interested in coaching because I had an executive coach at Citigroup. And I found it really transformational, not just from the work sense, but also personally. So I was still interviewing to do similar sorts of roles in banking. But at the same time, I was finishing up my master's in corporate and executive coaching. And I remember I was interviewing for a banking role. And they asked me, well, what have you been doing, since you left Citigroup? And I said, well, I've, been finishing up my master's in coaching. And they're like, well, we need coaches. And I'm like, really? And so I ended up getting my first coaching role before I even had a business card or website. And to me, that was like a sign from the universe that I wasn't pushing water uphill and that I'd made the right decision. So I haven't looked back.
Did you have any fears?
Oh, yes. Yeah. But I really do believe in that. Feel the fear and do it anyway. You can only be so prepared. I was getting my qualifications. I was doing everything I can. At some point, you just have to take the leap if that's the decision you've made.
I'm just wondering though, how important, Susan, is the inner compass, the intuition, the listening to that inner voice?
I think, looking back on it, whenever I did not follow that inner compass, when I did not follow my intuition, that's when things went wrong.
I love the chapter in this one. It's, first of all, extremely hilarious, but
I had fun writing it.
What I would love to ask about, though, is a quote that you put in it. You say, change your mind, change your life. Now, recently I read in the Quran that God doesn't change anything for someone until they change what is within themselves. But how easy is it to change our neural pathways?
Yeah, well, we get in ruts, don't we?
Right.
And the ruts are reflected, the neural pathway ruts are, sort of reflect some of the ruts that we get into in our life.
Right. I mean, I've wanted to change so many things, but I'm constantly battling with that resistance, the negative self-talk, the inner critic. So for me, it's been a really exhausting process trying to change, and also make it lasting, committed change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think choosing, being clear on what you want, being really clear on the beliefs that you want to have. In my chapter, I'm quite humorous about the sort of negative self-talk that I have. I called it the torture talk that I had every morning when I'd hit my snooze button. Like, I'm so tired, I hate my job, my boss is unfair, my colleagues are jerks, and my clients are so rude. And I would just kept reinforcing these beliefs. And I'm like, what beliefs do I want to have? This was actually something I learned from Jack Canfield is, well, choose your thoughts. What do you want to be thinking? And I'm like, I want to be thinking that I'm wide awake and I love my job. And so that's actually what I had said in the morning. I said that, instead of hitting the snooze button and going through my torture talk through 3 snoozes, I said what I wanted. And even if it wasn't true at the time.
Right. Because
even if it wasn't true, it's an affirmation. And it's training your brain to see things differently. Even just saying that, I'm wide awake and I love my job. I would get in the shower. You're not really wide awake. It's 5:30 a.m. You don't really love your job working with those type of people. How could you? And I would just, as soon as I started going down the road, I'm wide awake and I love my job. And then, so the other thing I did was a negativity detox. I did not even utter anything negative. I tried not to.
even if you thought it.
Even if I thought it, I wouldn't say it. I wouldn't amplify it by saying it, or because that's contagious. Just like negative people like to be in rapport. So you complain about something on my mother-in-law. Well, you should see my mother-in-law. So people get into rapport with you by mirroring what you've said. So if you're positive, they tend to mirror that as well. So I wasn't saying anything aloud. I was focusing also on gratitude. That was a big thing in helping me. It was focusing on what I was grateful for every morning and every evening before I went to bed. And that is the time when our brains are most suggestive. So starting the day with that and finishing the day. And the other thing is, I think people spend more time every morning figuring out what they want to wear than they do how they want to show up and feel. And so I would like to, sort of run through, what's the best thing that could happen today, and run through that my mind and visualize how I wanted to show up, how I wanted to feel for the day. And then when you are being intentional, you are less likely to be caught in habitual reactions. Because if you're going to have a tricky meeting that day, and you've already set the intention that you're going to stay calm, you're not going to react, or you are going to smile and just count to 10, that already starts to change the neural pathways.
I'm guessing that it's kind of being in the moment with it too, to a certain extent, because I guess we're stuck in that state, aren't we, of mind, body, spirit, emotion, thought, reality.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say that committed persistence is something that really resonates in this work?
Yes, I like that. I think that's the title of my next Take Action Tuesday tip. Committed persistence. Yeah, I like that. King's College of London did a study on habits, and that actually it's about 66 days to automaticity. It's 66 days, there's lots of 21-day habit challenges, but actually the research showed it was 66 days until the new behavior became automatic. It became more uncomfortable not to do the new behavior than to do it.
Can you share with us about your energy model?
Everything comes back to energy. Everything is energy. Everything is energy. And I was trying to find a simple way, a simple model for helping people to up their performance. And it's not IQ, it's not EQ, emotional intelligence. It's really what I say, energy awareness, knowing what enhances your energy, your ability to show up as your best self, and what drains that away. What is causing your energy leaks? What is limiting your potential? And I thought there were 6 areas. So I made an energy wheel. And so you could look at the different pies and find out, okay, well, this is a 10 out of 10. This is a 1 out of 10. and then thinking about what are new habits that you can put in place to up your energy in those areas. So one of the areas is connection energy, how you interact and communicate with others. And nothing is more de-energizing. I think anybody that I coach in a work sense, one of the biggest de-energizers tends to be a poor relationship with somebody at work.
Or at home.
Yeah, right. So how you interact and communicate with others is either, things are going to be going great, or those relationships are really draining you.
I love that chapter, and actually so many light bulbs went off for me personally when you shared about the introvert's way of connecting energetically compared to the extrovert's way of connecting energetically. And suddenly I was like, oh my God, well that explains my 17-year problems connecting with my husband, because he is probably more introvert extrovert and I'm probably more extrovert introvert.
Right.
So can you just share now with our audience about this concept?
Yeah, I really had that aha moment when I had my Myers-Briggs profile done. And so that's, Carl Jung really explained that that has nothing to do with social skills or confidence. It's where you get your energy from. So introverts get their energy from going within and thinking things over, and extroverts get their energy from interacting with people in the environment and talking things through. So the preferred form of communication of an introvert would be email or written, and the preferred form of communication of an extrovert would be, talking face to face. And the great example was when I got that, I earlier in my career, I was setting up a department at Citigroup, and I had a lot of procedures and things to put in place, and we'd have these big team meetings. And normally I'd ask everybody for their agenda items, and I would give them to my assistant, and I would pick up the agenda on the way to the meeting. So everybody would see the agenda for the first time in the meeting, and we would go to brainstorm some solutions to these items. And that's, introverts hate brainstorming because they want to think things through first.
Right.
And extroverts love it, but what they tend to do is, shoot off their, half thought through ideas, thinking loud. And so we would go into these team meetings, and it would always be the same people participating. The population's half and half. So I'd have my extroverted team members coming up with ideas, and we would decide on something, and I'd get back to my desk, and either 2 hours or 2 days later, I get an email, the preferred form of a communication of an introvert, and they would say, I think we should do this, not that. And it would be a clearly superior idea. And I'd always think as an extrovert, well, why didn't you say that in the meeting? And I always got the same response. I had to think about it. And it finally got through to me. And I'm like, okay, I understand introverts and extroverts now. What can I do differently? And I asked everybody for their agenda items the night before, had them typed up and redistributed so everybody got to see the agenda in advance. And that didn't just help the introverts who had time to think it through and process it. It also helped the extroverts because they weren't just, talking aloud. And my God, it was like having a completely different team. Once we went in there, I got full participation, great interaction, and, the ideas I came away with, I didn't get the 2 hours or 2 days later email. So it saved my time, energy, and I think everybody was happier.
What's been the things that have helped engage you with presence?
There are three areas I think about in presence. It's self-leadership, which is knowing your own values, being authentic, understanding your own passions. It's really, doing who you are. Everybody else is taken, right? So understanding, getting clear on that, who you are. I think when I first started out as a manager, I'd look around and the only role models I had were middle-aged British men. And I was a 30-year-old American woman. And so taking on their behaviors, because I always learned, if you don't know how to do something, model someone who does.
Right.
But their behaviors, I would have like these out of body, moments, like, looking down at my well-intentioned self saying, did you seriously just say that? That's not you. And so to have presence, I think you really need to be authentic. You have to get clear on what your values are, who you are, what your passions, what are your ways of doing things. And so that's a big self-awareness piece. So I think working on eliminating those blind spots and understanding who you are, what your gifts are, what your strengths are, how you are going to leverage those instead of trying to be someone who you aren't, which is really de-energizing. And it's hard to be present when you're always trying to be what you're expected to be, because you can't consistently do who you aren't.
And it's interesting because, I remember sort of being on that trading floor, and there's a certain type of masculine energy and culture
yes,
that we are expected to be part of. In Sufism, we say a Sufi is a child of the moment. And I'm just wondering what comes up for you when I say that or share that.
It is being in the moment, isn't it? It's not over planning and thinking about who you should be. It's being very present and being aware in that moment. I think the other things with presence is it's hard to be present if you're exhausted. So it gets back to that energy piece.
Tell me more about that. That's what you term as internal energy, is that right?
Input energy.
Input energy.
Yeah, and I think that is... I really had an aha moment. I remember watching this woman coaxing her obese child to drink out of a McDonald's Coke cup. And I remember just sitting there in my head thinking, what are you doing? And silently judging her. And I thought, you know what? You are educated and you are not treating your body any differently. I was getting 5 to 6 hours of sleep. I was eating terrible food. I wasn't exercising. I really wasn't looking after myself. So, common sense is not common practice. And that input energy of the air, food, water, sleep, and supplements you put into your body, it is really, you're a fool or physician by 40, right? You need to really understand what you need to do to optimize your energy output. And the inputs are very important, especially sleep.
And I guess, again, it's going back to what we were discussing before. It's like retraining this neural pathway, because once those habits get established, it takes willpower, determination, committed persistence to bring 66 days of that change to make it happen, right?
Yeah, and I think the best way is to start with little micro habit changes and then stack them. The habit stacking is something that I use a lot, which is adding a habit to something that's already there.
Let's talk about breast cancer. Now, you've recently recovered from it. Can you share a little bit with us now about how and where you were diagnosed with it?
Yeah, it was really, I don't know how I can say this, almost like divine intervention where I was diagnosed. It was just the most beneficial place to be diagnosed, which was at a cancer conference. I was actually there. My father was really dying from his chemo treatment, and I wanted to be more informed about other alternatives. So I flew to Texas to a cancer conference, and it was there that I sat through like 30 lectures on different healing modalities, aside from the traditional trio of chemo, radiation, and surgery. And one of those lectures was on thermography. And it was talking about how mammograms are, old technology with ionizing radiation. And, it's already been phased out in several countries, including Switzerland. And that thermography, using the infrared cameras and seeing the heat patterns in bodies, Your body can indicate where there's dis-ease and where further investigation is needed. And so I made a note to myself, I must get one of those when I get back to London. And I ended up bumping into the doctor that had given that lecture, literally physically bumping into her. And I said, I made a note to myself to get one of these when I get back to London. But what I'd really like is, a thermogram by a world expert like you. And she said, well, I have my equipment with me, if you'd like one. I have one more appointment left on the last night of the conference. And so off I went. And, she showed me my scan and my red boobs. Red was inflamed, blue, normal breasts are cool because they're outside the body, and mine were red. And I got further investigations, and yes, it turned out that I did have breast cancer.
Tell us a little bit more about your holistic, pretty non-conventional, I might add, treatment plan.
I felt so fortunate that I was able to make different choices about my healing path, having sat through 30 lectures on other ways to do things.
Because you did it pretty non-conventionally, right?
Yeah, knowledge is power, right?
Right.
And so I was really thinking about, I was looking at cancer really as a gift. It was like, this is my gift to you. You were not listening. You were not paying attention. This is my last resort to get your attention. And, spiritually, emotionally, physically, you were not doing the right things. And I remember the diagnosis was on the 16th of October, 2016. So there was sort of symmetry, not actually the diagnosis, but that thermogram. And I remember journaling that night, looking at 16, and it was like almost like an hourglass shape with the numbers. And I thought, hourglass, yeah, my time is running out, and I'm going to have to turn this over, reset. And I really started thinking about what I needed to do to radically change my life. And
how did all your coaching work and everything you learned, how did it influence that turning, that shifting?
I felt so lucky that I had that experience. Even some of the little tools that I had learned from Jack Canfield, like the rule of 5. Every day I did 5 things to help my health because I felt so overwhelmed by the things that I needed to do. And I did 5 things every day, be it read an article or order a trampoline, to a rebounder to help with the lymphatic drainage, to ordering a book on intermittent fasting. All of these things, every day I would do 5 things that were going to help my health. But some of the things that I did that were probably non-conventional is I was tested. I had the RGCC test from Greece. It's nicknamed the Greek test. And what they do is they put your cancer cells in Petri dishes and expose them to different substances, conventional drugs, chemotherapies, as well as natural substances. And they show what causes apoptosis, the death of the cancer cell, and what prevents it from growing. I have 2 different views on fevers and antibiotics now. Like, antibiotics are, for life and death situations, and I allow fevers to happen. I don't take medicines to alleviate fevers. They're there, the body's natural defense to kill whatever it needs to. So just keeping hydrated and letting your body heal itself.
Did you have to cut out certain food types during this process?
Yes, cancer thrives on sugar, and so I cut out sugar or anything that converted to sugar. So refined sugar, alcohol, pasta, bread, rice, potatoes. So those things that converted to sugar and, raised my blood sugar levels, I did not want to be feeding the cancer. So eliminating that. I did a lot with, I had chiropractic work to get my body back in alignment, which I think made a big difference. I had my metal fillings removed by a biological dentist. I had lymphatic drainage because I needed to help my lymph system get rid of the toxicity in my body. Part of that was also the types of exercise I did, because the heart pumps the blood, but the lymph is pumped by vertical jolting action. So jumping jacks, rebounding, skipping rope, going downstairs. These are the types of things that brisk walking that get the lymph system moving, and sweating using infrared saunas, and so I could, sweat out the toxicity as well.
Would you say that you're naturally positive, Susan? Would you say that you naturally gravitate towards hope versus hopelessness?
Yes, I do. Do you know, ironically, something that so inspired me, I call it my BBH moment, the best Bollywood hotel moment, because something I kept saying to myself was, everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. And I actually became at peace with whatever the end was. That was okay. All I had was that present moment, and that was okay. And if it's not okay, well, then there's the next moment, and then that's okay. And I was at peace with whatever happened, and I, even if it was my passing, I was okay with that. I think from everything something good comes. So even the worst things in my life have somehow ended up being the best.
It just reminds me of another saying from the Quran, which is, God gives you something you think may be good for you, but it may be bad.
Yeah. Or vice versa.
Or
something's bad for you.
Something that you think is bad for you, but it may be good. So it's almost traversing as almost a witness to all the unfoldings.
Yeah.
And try to be not necessarily emotionally detached, but much more operating from that space of observer and witness to constant reactor to triggers, right?
I think one of the things that I happen now, like when something bad happens, or I think it's bad, I actually get excited now. I'm like, oh, what am I going to learn? Or what good is going to happen? Like if I miss a flight, I'm like, who am I going to meet? Something's happening here. Beautiful. I don't get too down anymore when things don't go my way, because I thought I'm being represented with a lesson that I didn't learn before, or something good is coming from this. I think Thomas Edison had a quote that failure is just the opportunity to begin again more intelligently. Give me purpose, give me grace, erase those stress lines from my face. Give me love and mindful connection, loyal relationships, and true affection. Give me work where I can create meaning, serving others, together succeeding. Give me the courage to live my values. Hiding, conforming is not what I choose. Inspire me to action without endless reflection, finding peace with perfect imperfection. Let me nourish my body, mind, and soul. It's my health. I know that I'm in control. Help me to choose wise acts with intention instead of reacting and creating more tension. Let me be all that I can be, not in my masculine, but authentically. Give me my confidence, give me my power. This is my time, this is my hour. Help me create a vision to inspire me, and then to manifest it with infinite energy. Amen.
Amen.